U.S. and Israeli officials met today in Jerusalem to discuss what could be one of the most dramatic changes to the Middle East map in decades.
The Bible warns against giving away land God promised to the Jewish people.
It's difficult to even explain it this way, but I've followed the pattern for 20 plus years, Chris, and this pattern fits that the God of Israel is not pleased about dividing Judea and Samaria for a future Palestinian state.
Koenig says he's witnessed more than a 20-year pattern where the U.S. reaps consequences when it forces Israel to give away its God-given land.
So I've been documenting what happens when the United States applies pressure on Israel to divide their covenant land. In my book, Eye to Eye, I documented 127 events through Hurricane Harvey that happened at the time or right at within the first 24 to 48 hours of U.S. pressure on Israel to divide their covenant land. Starting with the perfect storm, going to 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Harvey, and unfortunately, life in America before January 28th, and then on January 28th, when the plan was delivered, and what has happened in America and around the world after January 28th, according to coronavirus, has been a very significant event. And it fits the eye-to-eye pattern that I've documented for 20 years.
Easter as our timeline, what a great timeline that would be.
Former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, who had said he would never criticize the sitting president, is blasting President Trump's call for the military to dominate the protesters. The retired Marine general accused the president of trying to divide the country. Mr. Trump fired back on Twitter, calling Mattis the world's most overrated general.
President Trump is drawing a line in the sand in the battle over renaming U.S. military bases that honor Confederate generals. Major military leaders are now agreeing that it's time, but the president is vowing to veto legislation that makes that change. Our senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce tracking this story. And Mary, in another major move, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has called for removing all Confederate statues from the Capitol.
And George, the speaker says those statues have to come down because she says there is no room for celebrating the violent bigotry of the Confederacy. But the president sees this differently. He is flatly rejecting those calls to remove the names of Confederate commanders from U.S. military bases, even though the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Army are open to it. But in a tweet, the president said these monumental and very powerful bases have become part of a great American heritage. And his press secretary says that removing these names would be complete disrespect for the soldiers who trained there. But George, while the president is passionately defending keeping these names of the Confederate commanders on these bases, he has yet to put forth any ideas or specific reforms to address the killing of George Floyd.